In Dungeons & Dragons, who is Warduke? GameMasters here, and today we are diving deep into the legend of perhaps one of the most fearsome warriors in all of Dungeons & Dragons history. Warduke wasn't simply a brute with a long sword. He was a walking nightmare with a very mysterious past, and his reputation revolved around battle and blood. Who is he? Where did he come from? And why does he look so damn cool? Grab your drink of choice, sit back, and let's explore exactly who Warduke is. Now, you might think that Warduke, like several others, started out as a toy back in the 1980s, and while he was a toy, he actually made an appearance back in the 1970s. Cue the cover of the Dragon magazine issue number 17 from 1978, and take a look at who is on the cover. Check out those glowing red eyes and that winged helmet. Yeah, I know. But GameMasters, there's almost a naked lady on the cover. How can you expect us to see anything other than that? Now, I will say that it is possible that what we see here is not the actual Warduke, but that this illustration may have been the inspiration for what would later become an action figure. And I say that because aside from the very curious cover, there's no actual mention of Warduke in the magazine itself. Years later, he would show up on the cover of Dungeon magazine issue 105, but we'll get there in a bit. In the early 1980s, as mentioned, Warduke was introduced to toy stores as an action figure from a toy company called LJN. Alongside Warduke's release were several other toys in the same line. Strongheart, for example, which is somebody that we covered in a previous video, as well as Northlord, a barbarian, a half-orc assassin named Zarek, a dwarf fighter named Elkhorn, a sorcerer named Kellic, among others. This toy line was beyond successful that over the years they would see upgrades to things like points of articulation, be put on lunchboxes, even be turned into pencil erasers. Sharpeners, rather, and pencil sharpeners. In coloring books, even turned into a Halloween costume. To call this Dungeons & Dragons toy line a success is an understatement, and they went on to merchandise the tar out of these characters. The goal of the toys, of course, was to open a kid's imagination and have epic adventures. But those of us that really dug in would often have major crossovers. D&D figures versus G.I. Joe figures versus Transformers. And it was always a battle to save the world or dominate it. Usually ending in the group from D&D winning because, well, they had magic. But the overall point here is when playing with either the figures as a toy or the pencil and paper game, our imagination got involved. That all kind of explains as to what Warduke was as a toy. But let's examine the blister card that he was packaged on to get a little bit more of who he was. It reads, as a class, and remember he is listed as being an evil fighter, this character is able to meet any physical challenge. Fighters use all types of weapons, but their favorites are magical swords. An evil fighter's purpose in life is to become strong and rule over all that he encounters. Those forces of good that fight such men soon learn never to surrender to them and never to show them weakness. In this package, Warduke would come with a sword and a shield. We would later see Warduke released in a gift set package that features him and a black horse, a nightmare, a steed. Keep this black horse in your memory for a bit because I'm going to go off on a tangent in just a few minutes, and that horse is going to be very important. But aside from a kid using their imagination, there was really no other lore for Warduke at that time. However, also in 1983, we would get a tease of him in an actual D&D product. In 1983, shortly after the introduction of the toy line, Warduke and others from that toy line were placed into the Dungeons & Dragons game. The intent was to cross-market, to get fans of the toy line to play the role-playing game, and for fans of the RPG, the role-playing game, to get the toys. There was even talks of using those 7-inch figures as miniatures to help envision your battles and adventures. Warduke was introduced to us in the Dungeons & Dragons accessory AC-1, The Shady Dragon Inn by Carl Smith. and in this we get some major insights as to who Warduke is. It tells us that he and Strongheart were once friends years upon years ago, but something called the Heartstone twisted Warduke and made him evil. Keep that in mind too. We're going to return to that later in the video too. The cool part, this accessory also provides to us Warduke's stats. For strength, he has a 16. His intelligence is 9. Wisdom is 11. Constitution is 8. His dexterity is 11. And his charisma is 11. He is of chaotic alignment, is level 8, and has an armor class of 2. And keep in mind that back in those days, we used a thing called THAC0, which stands for to hit armor class 0. Simply put, the lower your AC, the more difficult it was to hit you. He had 59 hit points and wears plate mail, even though his artwork kind of doesn't exactly depict that, but also carries a battle axe, a dagger, a shield that depicts a demon's head, that famous winged helmet, and a broadsword +1 that he can have burst into flames upon command, and he calls his sword Nightwind. And that is where it gets a little funny. While his stat block specifically states that he wears plate mail, his description, the first sentence, states that he wears a suit of half chain, just inches apart there in that description. Now, things were kind of a bit wonky back in those days, just as they are today. In 1984, we would see Warduke show up on the cover of Module XL1, Quest for the Heartstone. We see Strongheart battling a monster, and it is unclear if Warduke is taking advantage of the situation to slice at Strongheart, or if he is in battle with the same monster. Inside the module, we would be presented with the option of playing as one of several pre-rolled characters, Warduke being among them. In this module, he is depicted as being an evil fighter, a chaotic superhero of 8th level. His stats would largely remain the same as what we saw in the Shady Dragon Inn, with his strength, dex, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma all staying what they were, but we would see his constitution get bumped up to 14. Remember, it was at an 8 previously. His armor class and hit points would remain the same, and he would still carry a battle axe, a dagger, his sword +1 that he could, again, turn into flames, and his shield with the demon's head on it. But it did detail out his helmet just a little bit. It states that it is magical and gives him infravision and causes his eyes to glow red. Warduke in the early 1980s wasn't just limited to a toy line and a pre-generated character. He also showed up in the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon. In September of 1983, we would get a Dungeons & Dragons cartoon. Sadly, it only lasted for 3 seasons, but in the first season, episode 5, which aired on October 15th, 1983, we would get an episode called In Search of the Dungeon Master. In this episode, Warduke captures the Dungeon Master and attempts to sell him to Venger, the same Venger that we've covered in a previous video, by the way, which, by the way, I have to thank everyone that has watched that. It's been among my top most viewed videos so far, and I truly do appreciate all the comments and the likes that everyone has left. Speaking of which, feel free to give this video that you're watching now a thumbs up with that like button. I'd appreciate that. Remember just a bit ago that we described that Warduke's sword could burst into flame upon command? Okay, so in this cartoon episode, he can make it so that things get covered in ice. And it also has kind of a dull grayish glow. As I mentioned previously, D&D has always been a bit wonky with consistency, even back then. And I don't want to spoil too much for those of you that want to go out and find that series and watch that specific episode or any of them, but I will spoil that this particular episode does contain a zombie. I like zombies. Sadly, Warduke would step back from the limelight for several years, at least until Dungeon Magazine issue 105. And I told you we'd get back to that. Dungeon Magazine 105 came out in December of 2003, a whopping 20 years after we saw the initial introduction of Warduke, but he would now make an official return to D&D, touted as the toughest critical threat ever. Warduke is featured in a 2-page spread that would introduce him into the lore of Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition of the game, and cement him into the lexicon of Greyhawk. This article would explain to us that nearly 100 years ago, the demigod Ius was imprisoned beneath Castle Greyhawk by the Archmage Zagig, that a group of 13 adventurers formed what is known as the Horned Society and took over the lands that Ayuz once occupied. However, Ayuz's forces slowly grew over time and invaded the Horned Society, taking out the most powerful leaders. The twist is that normally when the head of a snake is cut off, the body dies along with it. But in this instance, the leaders of the Horned Society were put to the torch. One of them was reborn due to a pact with the devil Beelzebul. He was able to rebuild his society quickly due to a bloodthirsty and ruthless fighter named, Warduke. This article goes on to say that Warduke emerged from nowhere after the Greyhawk Wars, and I want to go on a slight tangent here for a moment, if you'll so indulge. We saw Warduke as a toy, and then in the Dungeons & Dragons RPG material, and in the D&D cartoon. From the cartoon, we know that the heroes have been searching for a way to return home. Now, my tangent is going to go on a smaller tangent. About 5 years ago, there was a car commercial for the Renault Kwid Outsider. This was a live-action version of the intro of the cartoon, in which we see Tiamat blazing fire down upon the heroes, and in swoops Venger to attack as well. The Dungeon Master then drives up, and it takes a slight detachment from the cartoon here, but tells the heroes that it's time to return home. Presto opens a portal, and back to Earth they drive, back at the carnival that they originally left from. The final shot has sinister music playing and shows a cop on horseback staring at them, and we get a close-up of this figure. Now, you're asking, what does this car commercial have to do with Warduke? Indulge me a little bit more on this small little tangent here. Take a look at the cop again with the red glowing eyes. Many will think that this is Venger, and I agree that it does make sense, but I think what makes more sense is that this cop is actually Warduke. Look back at the gift set that features Warduke and his horse, the toy from the 1980s. Yeah, I know, Venger also rode a black horse, but anyway, look at our cop. He's wearing a helmet, and it's causing his eyes to glow red. In my imagination, this is Warduke. Anyway, sorry for the tangent there, but let's go ahead and hop back to our Dungeon Magazine version of Warduke. It stated that he emerged from nowhere and spread terror among the lands, that Warduke is the soldier's boogeyman. He has no honor in his fighting style, and would often go after those that are tired after they have fought a major battle or just exited a dungeon crawl. Now, players beware there. I take no ownership of the planting of the idea of your DM using Warduke in exactly such an instance. We also get Warduke's 3rd edition stats. He is now a level 18 fighter with a strength of a whopping 32, dexterity of 16, constitution of 28, an intelligence of 13, wisdom of 15, and a charisma of 20. He has an armor class of 34. Now remember, this is 3rd edition stats now, and 318 hit points. He wields a +3 Bane versus Human Anarchic Flaming Burst Bastard Sword, a Dagger of Venom, a +3 half-plate armor, a +5 bashing shield, an Amulet of Health +6, Gauntlets of Giant Strength +6, Boots of Speed, a Ring of Protection +3, and a Fiendish Graph of Fearsome Eye, which lets him see as the spell invisibility, and also grants to him a Fear Gaze attack in which you must make a DC 16 willpower save, otherwise you are paralyzed with fear for 1d4 rounds. Oh, and his winged helmet, it's a major artifact. When worn by someone other than Warduke and who is of non-evil alignment, the wearer incurs 2 negative levels and causes spikes to begin to grow into their head, causing 2d6 slashing damage each round it's on. Now, good luck getting that off with spikes slowly growing deeper and deeper and deeper into your skull. Should you be of evil alignment, however, and wear that helmet, you gain +10 to intimidation checks. You are immune to all charm effects. It grants low light vision to the wearer, and you gain 10 plus your level to spell resistance. The helm also stores spells that Warduke can use. Typically, he'll store Word of Recall and Death Knell in it. Word of Recall would allow him to teleport to safety, but he's never had to use it. And Death Knell would allow him to touch a dying creature and add its life to his. Warduke was a major force in the rebuilding of Ayuz's Horned Society, but it would be his joining the League of Malevolence where he would really shine. In Wild Beyond the Witchlight, 5th edition now, Warduke has seen some balancing down from his 3rd edition counterpart. He is still depicted as being a remorseless killer, but one thing that they describe that I fully disagree with is that, and I quote, he isn't terribly bright. Now, like I said, I disagree with that because, well, look back at everything that we've described of him so far. He's, at worst, at least above average intelligence. For his 5th edition stats, he has an armor class of 17, has 78 hit points, has a strength of 16, dexterity of 11, constitution of 14, an intelligence of 9, a wisdom of 11, and a charisma of 11. He has a challenge rating of only 5, again, very much watered down from his 3rd edition version. He wears a dread helm, which causes his eyes to glow red and his face to be in shadows. Again, a major reduction from how even it was that helmet functioned in 3rd edition. Warduke also carries a flame-tongue longsword, which does 7 slashing damage plus 7 fire damage when it's lit up. Storyline-wise, Warduke has joined the League of Malevolence, a group of villains brought together for one reason, to obtain as much power as they can. While bad guys teaming up seems fruitless by most accounts, I mean, at a certain point, evil is going to stab evil in the back, right? The League of Malevolence seems to work. This is another adventure that I want to be a touch shy with regarding spoilers, but Wild Beyond the Witchlight also features a few others from the famous 1980s toy line, including Strongheart. Short of Wild Beyond the Witchlight, there's very little else stated about Warduke in 5th edition, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. There are few forces that rival the power of nostalgia. Those of us that once held the toys and imagined grand adventures in our heads are now running games at our tables and have invited others into our imaginations. To that end, we have no knowledge of Warduke's early life, from childhood into adulthood. We have only brief sentences that describe that he was once good friends with the paladin Strongheart, and while we know what split them and turned Warduke evil, the Heartstone from that XL module, we have no idea what his and Strongheart's adventures were prior to that. What I'm saying is, Warduke's past is shrouded in mystery. He wasn't always a villain, so I'd like to hear down in the comments what your imagination can come up with. What was Warduke's good old days like? Did he go by a different name then? Think back to your childhood, action figure in hand. What story would, what adventure would you conjure up? I've got a theory that I want to run by you in just a moment about Warduke and him all being evil. But first, I want to thank everyone for watching today's video. It's been a few weeks in the making, and I'll be the first to admit that there may be an element or two about Warduke that I've forgotten over the years or missed in my research. So I do ask your forgiveness if I did miss something. I also want to thank you for watching, but also want to thank my YouTube members and Patreon supporters and their contributions to the channel that have been above and beyond. I simply cannot thank everyone enough. If you would like to check out how to become a YouTube member or a Patreon supporter, I'll leave links down below and down in the description of this video. I'd also like to invite you to join my GameMasters Discord as we get into some lively gaming conversations. But two, it's where you, the viewer, can have an opportunity to help shape and form the future of this very YouTube channel. I get a lot of video ideas from suggestions and comments there, so I really hope to see you out over there. Again, I'll leave a link down to the description, or down to Discord in the description below. Okay, my theory. In the module XL1, Quest for the Heartstone, and this is going to be a big spoiler, so turn the video off now if you don't want to know it. But in Heartstone, the module itself, the Heartstone causes you to meet your double. Only whatever your current alignment is, your double's alignment is the complete opposite. I posit that when Strongheart, Warduke, and others encountered this Heartstone, while they were all of good alignment, that the evil-aligned Warduke defeated the good one, Strongheart's friend. And that is why we have Warduke as an ultimate bad guy now. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and don't forget, let your imaginations run wild as to Warduke's early life. I want to hear your tale down in the comments as well. Until next our paths cross, may you not have to face your evil double.